Hi, this is Carrie Brownstein.
This is DJ Premier.
This is Darren Aronofsky.
You got the RZA right here.
Rose McGowan.
Radiohead.
Aisha Tyler.
Tribe Called Quest.
Fred Armisen.
Prince Paul.
Javier Munoz. Seth Meyers.
Frankie Cosmos.
Flying Lotus.
Hi, we're Chaim, and you're listening to the Talkhouse Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Talkhouse Podcast. I'm Josh Modell. On this week's episode, we've got two guys whose work I've admired for decades, but who I never realized were as close as they are personally. David Wain and Craig Wedren. Now, Wain is a writer, director, actor, and more who first came to fame with the hilarious sketch comedy group The State. The State's mid-90s MTV show was a cult sensation and still holds up to this day. Proof of that, The State has been doing reunion shows recently, and this podcast was inspired by the fact that I saw today's other guest, Craig Wedren, in the audience for their recent Chicago show. After The State, Wain went on to direct a bunch of hilarious movies, including Wet Hot American Summer, Wanderlust, and Role Models. He's also done lots of acting and way more other stuff than I can list here in a reasonable amount of time. On top of that, he started the just for fun, cheekily named Middle-Aged Dad Jam Band, whose core also includes the State alumnus Ken Marino, along with other fun special guests at most of their shows. They'll be playing at SF Sketchfest, which starts today, with tons of other great stuff, including The State. Now, Craig Wedren started his career as the singer of Shudder to Think, the DC-based band of art rockers whose early records came out on Discord. After that band split up, which had something to do with Wedren being diagnosed with a pretty serious cancer in his mid-20s, he switched his focus away from the band and into doing more scoring and soundtrack work, at which he has undoubtedly succeeded. He's made music for tons of TV and film, including many of Wain's projects. He's also made some fantastic solo albums, including one that's due for release next week called The Dream Dreaming. It's maybe the most accessible thing he's ever done, but as Wain points out in this conversation, accessible music by Craig Wedren is still beautifully odd. As a huge fan of both Shudder to Think and The State, I'm surprised I didn't realize that Wain and Wedren weren't just professional collaborators, but literally lifelong friends. They've known each other since they were about 4, and they started making creative things together not long after that. They get into that history here, and if you check out talkhouse.com, you'll find a gallery of photos of them from over the years. In this chat, they talk about their history together, what they're doing now, the ups and downs of doing it yourself, bath time tips, and Wedren's health issues over the years, including one thing that just happened. It's a great chat. Enjoy.
What are we supposed to talk about again? Let me just look at our little subject list.
It's just totally self-moderated.
I know.
First of all, yeah. I know I already know this, but what's your name?
Craig Benjamin Wedren. And what's your name, full name?
David Benjamin Wain.
See?
And I remember when we were 4 years old, we marveled that not only did we have the same middle name, but our last name begins with W and ends with N.
See, and C is for Craig and D is for W, CBW, DBW.
CBW, DBW. And little did we know that decades later, CBD would become so popular.
How much CBD are you on now? We need to start a company, CBW, DBW, CBD.
DVD.
CBD, BMW.
Bitty. No, but I do basically a bottle and a half of CBD in the morning.
Sweet.
And then I drink about
like
40 ounces. I have like a CBD latte at night, right before bed. So you're speaking from your home studio. It's not home studio is an understatement. It is your massive base of operations, which happens to be on the same property as your home.
It is not massive, but it is my base of operations, and it is beautiful, and I absolutely love it here.
It's beaming with spirit and history and love.
I totally feel that way about it. And just to catch people up, we used to make music in your basement starting about, what, age 11, 12?
Oh, earlier than that, I would say, on some level, at least. But yeah, around then.
I mean, like consciously, seriously, like, oh, let's make
we're a band. There's a band.
Yeah. So it started in your basement, and then I got my first 4-track when I was 16 in Washington, D.C., and my recording studio was on my bed, on my futon. And then it moved into my closet in that room, which was like a big move. And then I got like an 8-track cassette recorder. And then in college... I
remember all these milestones of like 4 tracks, 8 tracks.
Yeah. And then in college, I don't remember like what we did.
You had some recording stuff, but I don't think you had a dedicated space really.
I remember like doing things in the broom closet of the Brittany dorm.
Yeah.
Like I need some quiet. I'm going.
Yeah, we were very crowded in there.
Yeah. And then it was like the back bedroom of various apartments around New York City. And now it's like its own little small home in the backyard of my family's home. It's a dream.
And to catch people up on the people who are listening to this and who aren't already our close friends, that first chapter was in Shaker Heights, Ohio.
That's right.
Which is where you and I both grew up.
Yeah. And where we met because our parents were friends?
I think it was more that Stuart's parents and my parents were friends, and then we met at camp, and then everybody became friends.
Park Day Camp. Park and Synagogue Day Camp, Cleveland, Ohio, probably 1973.
Something like that.
Because we were born, in addition to our initials, we're
celebrating
2 weeks apart.
We were born 2 weeks apart, yeah.
We just passed our 50th anniversary.
So okay.
Which is crazy.
Isn't that nuts?
Uh-huh.
By way of introduction, so I'm David Wain.
I'm Craig Wedren.
And Craig is a musician, a composer, a singer, a filmmaker, a multi-hyphenate like so many of us.
And I'm Craig Wedren. David Wain is a comedian, magician, drummer, filmmaker, director, actor, what am I forgetting? Writer, screenwriter.
Horse riding buff.
Horse riding buff. He horse rides in the buff.
And we have been friends, very close friends and close collaborators for these aforementioned 50 years.
That's right. I was about to sing a George Harrison song, but then I was like, well, maybe you can't do that on a podcast.
Well, also, I think because of the way we lost him.
That's true. That could be a good segue to cancer, but it's so early to talk about.
I know.
That.
We'll get there.
Okay.
We have a little time.
Okay.
So we worked together, so to speak, on things starting when we were 12, as we said.
But also, I think it's important to note that you blazed a trail. You've basically been doing what you do since we were like 7.
Yeah.
But by yourself. Like you started off making truly weird and not that different from what you do now, less refined, obviously, beta cam videos of yourself in basically your mom's wardrobe and different characters.
I would say maybe less refined.
Well, I don't know that it's less refined. It's just like you've definitely become a better editor.
Yeah.
It's tighter. It's tighter now.
I would go down in the basement and let the camera roll.
Yeah,
and then just do different weird characters, basically talking to myself, mumbling along.
Right.
And then
I would say there was no editing at the time.
And I would make you and my parents and my friends and my sisters and their boyfriends sit and watch these long, and they would say things like, okay, I think we get the idea. And I'm like, no, it's still going.
Just 15 more minutes of me.
But yeah, I have learned to edit.
I feel like for some reason, when you mentioned forcing your sisters and your parents and friends to watch, it was like you had a bunch of parents.
I had 3 sisters who were much older than me, so they were as more parental than they were peers. And then they had like their various guys in their life and husbands eventually that were part of my life. And then I had my actual parents.
And there was just an enormous amount of like indulgent isn't the right word because that like implies a kind of decadence, but like permission for you to be exactly who you are.
There's no question about that because I was raised in a house where my parents were older. They were a little bit richer than they had been before. And they had kind of raised 3 kids and were finishing that up.
They were done parenting, but it wasn't laissez-faire. You got all of the love, but none of the trips.
It was like having grandparents in a way. They were just like, we love you.
Yeah. And so they would watch like 30 minutes of you like in your mom's wigs being like,
What's interesting is that we grew up together. We grew up in the same place. We grew up very close, but we had very different types of households.
Yes, I would say so.
Well, another big key thing is that our family had a swimming pool in the backyard. It was one of the few in our group of friends. And so whenever the weather was nice in Cleveland, everyone just came over without being invited because there was no texting.
Oh, yeah.
And so it was just sort of like, you said it was like a haven.
And multi-generational, right? Because there was us, we were little shrimps. There were your sisters who were at least 10 years older than us. And then there were your parents and all of their friends, which is to say, like my parents, Stuart Blumberg, who was sort of the third in our
trio
posse, and his parents, and everybody was always hanging out at the pool. It was like 3 sweet Paul Thomas Anderson movies in one, but in the Midwest.
I would say that's right. Sometimes when I watch that movie, Dazed and Confused, it feels a little bit like, if you want to know and it's mixed with John Hughes.
Yeah, maybe. Dazed and Confused.
But there's something I've never asked you, which I'm so curious about, which is, because obviously you have a many decades distinguished career as like one of the great composers, I think. But what was the first moment that you're like, okay, I am composing something. I'm going to write a song or whatever it is.
It was in your basement. I remember the moment. In fact, it was profound, and it was a feeling that became my sort of true north for that feeling that we sort of that carrot.
Yeah.
That moves us through our work. And I remember we were in your basement. It was a phase where I think we were super into Tones on Tail, who are Bauhaus Love and Rockets side project, and The Residents. And Matt Fields was over. And I remember you had some kind of like Rhodes keyboard piano.
The Moog.
Maybe it was a Moog. And Matt and I were just messing around, and I remember there was a bass involved and a keyboard involved and some 2-track reel-to-reel, which you had in the basement, which is how we were recording.
A TIAC.
And something happened that didn't sound like anybody else that we made. It was like a mistake, right? Because we were trying, I mean, as you do, like you get together with your friends and you say, oh, let's do like a Tones on Tail thing, or let's do a Residence thing. And you get it wrong and it doesn't quite work.
I mean, it's what the Bird called a blue note.
That's right. It's like all blue notes all the time. And this song came out and it just felt original. It was like the first clue. You know what I mean? And I think that was after. So my first band, as you know, because you were the manager, was called Immoral Minority. And in Immoral Minority, Scott Harbert, prodigal 7th grade guitar player, actually just musician, composer, musical character, kind of the couple original songs that we had, he wrote completely. Like he wrote the guitar, he wrote the vocals, which I sang, he wrote the lyrics. So I don't know if it even occurred to me until that moment in your basement with Matt, you know, a year or two later, where it was like, oh my God, there's something like extraordinary.
And so were you playing something and then and out came this melody, or?
I don't know. I just remember the feeling and the instruments. And I weirdly remember, I think I remember the song. It was like, boom,
oh, I remember that so well. I bet you that's findable somewhere, and we should enshrine it as the first Craig Wedren composition.
I feel like that was the first one. For me,
is that the one where the percussion was a chain hitting the pole? Remember that?
That rings a bell, but I don't know.
Yeah, I remember you just had like a wallet chain or something, and you just hit it against a thing, and that was the because that does feel Tones on Tail-y.
Yeah, totally. It was like Lions by Tones on Tail. I would say that was the first one, so I have you to thank. In fact, you know what? I want to publicly thank you because your unbridled originality and what would you call it? Like when somebody is like inimitable, but more like they can't help themselves. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? I don't know what the word is for it. It'll come to me. You always had that, and so it made it easier, I think, to see that was even a possibility. I don't know that it was conscious at that age, but it was just sort of in the water.
What a great thing to keep thinking about, you know. And I got that from my dad, who was in radio, and he would always be like, let's try this. Let's do this weird idea. Let's do this crazy promotion. Let's, you know, pull this stunt off. And he was always, you know, had that attitude of why not? Let's give it a shot.
Until he was 90.
Yeah.
I mean, till his...
Then from 90 to 92, it just didn't work out as well for him. So, all right, let's not go in chronological order.
No, let's just have a conversation.
I'm actually going to say, just for fun, what are you working on like today or this week?
So this week, Megan, my wife, just produced a documentary short that's going to Sundance in a couple weeks about a trans activist, performance artist, philosopher named Alok.
And just that's short is transportation activist.
Transportation activist, exactly.
Right.
It all goes back to the RTA.
Yeah.
And so Alok's favorite musician is Bright Eyes / Connor Oberst, who's an old pal of mine. And so I got in touch. My assistant, Simone, and I did the score. Simone Wilson did the score for the movie. And then Connor Oberst and I did the end credit song. So, everything's sort of DIY now, or a lot of things are much more DIY now, for better and for worse because of technology. And so there's just an enormous amount to do to get the song up and out and make sure everybody's credited and make sure that blah, blah, and get the song mastered.
You cannot exist in the entertainment business without being a multi-hyphenate anymore.
Yeah, it's really cool, but also be careful what you wish for.
Right.
Like growing up, listening to the music that we grew up with and being into a lot of the movies that we were into when we were growing up, they were very independent-minded and punk rock or whatever. And we were always sort of like, yeah, if only we had our hands on all the controls. And then it's like, oh my God, there's so many controls. There's so much to do.
I've bounced, as you know, back and forth between no low budget things into bigger budget things. And it's sometimes very nice when you're like, oh, there's somebody else who's better at this than you, who's going to do it instead of you.
100%.
And then you let go a little bit of the control, but then what you get back is somebody else's wonderful contribution.
Yeah, collaboration. And then you get to like direct and oversee.
And a moment to sit for a second.
Yeah, a moment to sit and like let and recharge and let new ideas come.
Yeah.
So I've just been putting together the art and making sure that it's mastered properly.
And are you the one that actually goes and presses the vinyl with the wax?
We have a lathe. No.
Ooh.
It's all, I just like to say that word. It's all digital, baby.
Want to know what I'm up to?
Yeah.
I just moved into a new house.
Yeah.
So I'm doing a lot of unpacking. And at the same time, I am preparing for, I'm doing a magic show and a rock and roll show and a comedy show all in San Francisco.
I'm so excited about the magic show. Can you talk about that for half a sec?
Well, I don't know if this is going to be on before then, but on January 19th in the San Francisco Comedy Festival, me and my longtime magic magician partner, Michaela Watkins, which is really a joke because this is the first time we're ever doing it, are doing an evening of variety and music and magic. Magic's always been a hobby of mine, but I've never ever done an actual like show where I'm billed as a magician for the evening.
Well, except that you used to literally be hired for birthday parties.
Yes, when I was 12, yes.
Yeah.
So I'm dusting off the old kit.
It's the original.
Yeah, all the same
skill.
tricks. The cups and balls. But yeah, it's interesting. I mean, we're still have no idea what it's going to be, but it's going to be great. And then that same weekend, the Middle-Aged Dad Jam Band, which I know we'll talk more about, is doing something. And then the state is doing a little something at that festival.
Oh my God, it's incredible. You just covered like so much stuff. Let's get into it.
And then also I have all these other projects in process. I'm working on reading scripts and having meetings and Zooms and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, it's sort of like that over here. I've got a new band called Flesh Car, and we're mixing our first record. It's an amazing band. It's so good.
Tell me, explain Flesh Car.
I had a dream about having a trio with Jarek Bischoff and Jacob Richards, where we would make 100% improvised music, but that it would be super coherent, almost song form improvised music. When you think of improvised music, I think a lot of times people think of like noise or like free jazz, which can be very, very formless. And these two players in particular were people that I felt could really run the gamut from abstract to almost pop in the course of an improvisation.
And Jarek plays bass and other instruments, right?
Jarek plays bass and some synth stuff. Jacob plays drums, and I do vocals and vocal processing.
I can tell you, I was in one of those sessions and I was blown away. Just totally blown away.
I think it's a really special band. So we're finally, because everybody's busy with their lives and other careers, we're finally getting our first record mixed and hopefully out fairly soon.
That's so friggin' cool.
But wait.
Okay.
We were talking about Sketchfest.
Yes.
And we talked about magic, we talked about Michaela, but we should talk about the State and Middle-Aged Dad Jam.
All right, let's go in that order.
Okay.
So as you know, the State, when I say as you know, and as maybe some people listening might know or don't know, but when we got to NYU, we met a bunch of other guys and one girl.
It should be said that we went to NYU together. Basically what happened, I moved to Washington, D.C. in 11th grade. Cleveland was a little difficult in the 80s for me in certain ways. I like to dress the way I like to dress. I would sometimes go out and get my ass kicked, and things at home were a little bit unpleasant.
Which is like just thinking about that in the context of today, like you dressed sort of new wave, I would call it.
Yeah.
And like the level to which you diverted from the way other people dressed was so, from today's perspective, minor. Like it wasn't that.
Yes.
It was like you were wearing like pants that were different than other people's pants. Yeah. But people needed to beat you up for it. Like it was crazy.
So I moved to DC, which was great, which is where my band Shudder to Think started. Separate subject.
Also a great topic, by the way.
Good topic. And college time came round for all of us. And I remember I had to make a decision. I was choosing between NYU and Vassar. And I couldn't decide. And it was like the night before I had to give a decision to one or the other. And I called you on the phone in Cleveland from DC. And I was like, I don't know what to do. And you were like, go to NYU, we'll be roommates.
Then that freshman year, first day, we met Ken Marino in the dorm. And very long story short, we basically just all became friends with a group of people that was Michael Showalter and Joe Luchulio and on and on, the whole group that became the State, and Tom Lennon and Kerry Kenny and so on. And that was a sketch comedy troupe at NYU based in the dorms that we were all friends. And after college, we started doing a cable show, The State, on MTV, and Craig was one of the composers on the show and did the theme song.
Along with Theodore Shapiro.
Yeah. Well, he didn't do the theme song with you, really.
No.
Because he's terrible at theme songs. He can't write a theme song to save his life.
Teddy and I we still collaborate, as you and I do.
I know.
Teddy
he's incredible. I was obviously joking.
Yeah. Teddy did the music for the pilot of Yellow Jackets, and then Anna Warrenker and I do the rest of the music for Yellow Jackets because he was too busy to do it.
So yeah, but you guys did the music for that series, which I guess was probably one of the first credits for both of you, right? If not the first, in terms of like scoring.
You gave us our break, okay?
No, I'm just saying, and then out from there came two very mostly separate but incredible careers as composers for TV and film.
100%. There's something I wanted to say about the State and you, which is at first you weren't in the group. And that always seemed like the weirdest thing to me. I felt like I was always simping for you with the people in the State because I was always like, David needs to be in this group. I was like, I was lobbying for you a lot.
Well, the backstory is that the State was formed. It was like the rib taken out of the group that Mo Willems started a sketch group called Sterile Yak at NYU that I was in. And so was Todd Hollebeck. And the school told us that we had to have new members. And Todd volunteered.
The school?
NYU, because it was like an NYU club. And so they said, if you want to keep being an NYU activity, you have to get new members in this sketch comedy.
But like, what does that mean? I mean, are they giving you money?
No, but it's just like if you want to be registered as an official club and then you could use the space. Yeah, it was literally to use like the Black Box Theater space or something.
Right.
And so we didn't want to do that because we thought this group's going to go around forever and blah, blah, blah. And so Todd Hollebeck volunteered to leave the group and start a B team and a new group, so to speak. And it was called the New Group for a long time. And it was of like mostly kids who were younger kids, 1 year younger. And eventually.
1 year younger, meaning like Tom Lennon, Carrie Kenny.
Yes. Joe Lucilio, Michael Schalker. That was
youngsters.
What became the State.
Right.
And then very quickly after the State's first show at NYU, it was clear that the State was the shit, and our group was about to fall apart, which is exactly what happened. And so I begged the State to let me in, and they did.
So your sensibility, again, to your credit, has always been and remains so unique that I think people at first are like, at least then, I think they were sort of like, is this guy for real? Like, what? Is this like, is this even funny? And then it's like, yeah, this is the funniest. And then you get in there and then it's like, oh my God.
I feel like my sense of humor was just, a totally organic thing of just imbibing a lot of Steve Martin and Woody Allen and you and I and our friends over the years. And they're just like whatever you take in. And just, as you said, like with my parents and stuff, having the no guardrails on
that's right,
being able to express that. And I've always felt like my favorite way that I've worked throughout my life and careers when I've allowed myself to let my voice be real, and you too, and probably any artist.
And also collaboration. Like I'm thinking of the best work that I've done and my favorite work that you've done. No, it's mixed. I think some of my favorite stuff that I've done by myself. Some of my favorite stuff that I've done with other people.
Yeah.
And same with you.
Yeah.
I was going to make, a generalization about that, but I don't.
I thrive in collaboration just because it helps me have a vessel for things, and just for a lot of reasons. I mean, just because I love the people that I've gotten to work with, including you. Anyway, so the State became a thing that was on MTV, and then we all stayed friends and family over the years, but then only recently again have we been kind of reactivated and gone on tour.
So are you going to carry on? Like, are you going to make new stuff?
We might. Yeah, we've talked about a lot of different things. We talked about, do we want to make a movie or another TV show or
I want you to.
A documentary or, continue touring, and all of those things are possibilities. Because the group, we really love each other, and we've, I think, come to realize that, you don't necessarily more than once in a lifetime find a group like that.
I don't think we ever took for granted how brilliant everybody was, but I know that I took for granted that, like, oh, this is just the way it is. Magical people always just fall into your lap.
Right.
And that is not the case.
Okay, so then the other thing we were going to touch on is I have a band, even though you're like a pro, but
Thanks.
Me and Ken Marino from the State and a bunch of other of our friends from back in NYU just started jamming in the garage and turned into a thing that is called, because it is what it is a middle-aged dad jam band playing covers of songs from when we grew up. And you're in that too.
That's right.
Whenever we have a show.
And at first, I remember when you guys started jamming in the garage. And to be clear, I spend all day in the studio making music. And then at the end of the day, sometimes you guys would be like, hey, come over. We're having a jam session in the garage, basically of the same set list that we used to do in Immoral Minority in your basement in like 1983.
Right.
And I would sort of be like, I really don't want to do that at the end of the day after making music all day and like go
very understandable,
sing
by the way.
Billy Joel covers.
Completely.
Until
okay.
I would come over and I'll be like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing. I feel so much better. And that's the way I feel about Middle-Aged Dad Jam Band.
And it's just a cover band, and we've somehow gotten into to the point where we've played in different places around the country and stuff. But people have said to us, you got to do your own original songs.
Like,
out
why?
Billy Joel. What the hell? I was talking with Ken Marino just today about how like it's at this juncture in life to have this kind of structure and opportunity to hang out with the people that you love and do something fun and like just that's all about fun and friendship and no stakes, and a really nice thing.
It's also, the stakes are low and getting lower with each passing year of our lives, but it's not like, it's really good. It's really funny.
Yeah,
and
I love it.
And musically, part of what's wonderful about it is there is a sense of like, okay, this could go off the rails, but it's actually technically a lot better than it needs to be.
I learned to play the drums because somebody left a drum set in my basement at some point.
Yeah.
And then I had one at some point, and then I dicked around on drums, and actually I ended up, playing drums, and I played in some bands sort of in college and around. I did a band that toured summer camps when I was 19. But boy, when we started,
say it, the Rockin' Nights of Summer.
The Rockin' Nights of Summer with K-N-I-G-H-T-S. But what was so exciting to me this year at age 54 was playing with this middle-aged dad jam band. And then we have a couple guys in the band who are actual real pros. And the rest of us were like
me.
Wow, we got to up our game here and try to play these songs well. And I did a sort of deep dive into how much I don't know about playing the drums. And it was so blown away and so excited to realize that there's just like this universe of things to learn.
But watching you go deep drum-wise in middle-aged dad jam band, which just rolls off the tongue, is inspiring.
All my life, I'm like, yeah, I know how to play drums. I can play anything,
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, wait a minute. There's a whole like layers and layers and layers. And as I study these classic, they're rock songs from 60s, 70s, 80s, and they're different genres. But, some of them are a little more R&B, and but as I'm studying these great drummers, I love just trying to get close to what they're doing. And I feel like I'm at the earliest stage of understanding this instrument now, and don't have any desire anytime soon to like write my own drum parts or anything. I'm just still loving and feeling there's endless learning to do, just studying and understanding what another drummer has come up with.
I mean, that's how I develop my singing style, is by very deeply imitating other singers, which I know is not a revelation. It's what most people do. But I had a particularly good ear for sort of mimicry.
Yeah.
And, so imitating Ozzy Osbourne and Steve Perry and Rick Ocasek and Neil Diamond and Johnny Rotten or
David Lee
whatever.
Roth.
I think the plan is to release some early Shudder to Think demos of our first original songs that have never been released.
Oh, wow.
From like 86 or something like that. And the songs are really good. It's very teenaged. It's like really going for it.
Yeah, which I love.
But I can hear in my voice every single one of those singers. I'm like, there's Susie Sue, there's Maxine Cervenka, there's Ozzy Osbourne again. And now when I sing, it just sounds like me.
It's all in there though. Yeah, I remember hearing Dave Grohl talking about every riff in Nirvana. He's like, yeah, well, that's the thing I stole from that group. And that's from a disco song. And there's no more distinctive, clearly just himself drummer. And yet the way he looks at it is like, this is what I stole from here. Yeah. Did you read the Rick Rubin book?
It's incredible.
I just can't get enough of it.
I legitimately think that it's sort of like the only book about creativity that you need.
100%.
It's so gentle and digestible. Well, like anybody could read it. Our sons, our parents.
His relaxed tone makes you feel like it's all going to be good. It's just great. And it's really also so deeply, specifically brass tacks instructive at the same time. Like, it's like, do this, don't do this. And and he's not trying to make it too mysterious.
I admit that I was like a little skeptical or snobby or
I can understand that.
And then it's really perfect.
It's just this beautiful treatise on what it is to live the creative life, and what it is to be creative. It's called The Creative Act, right?
It's called The Creative Act.
Now, Craig, I want to ask, is there a website or an 800 number we can call if our audience wants to get a copy of this book?
Yeah.
Or
1-800 Be Yourself. YOYOSLF.
All right. And we do get a commission for that.
Yeah.
Now, listen.
Okay.
Let's talk about your health.
Okay, let's do that. Wait, you know what? We can segue this. Watch.
Okay.
So,
watch.
It was it was just Christmas and New Year's. And I went to the Midwest with my family. It should be said that, speaking of magical collisions of wonderful friends and artists, I met my wife, Megan Lennon, because she is Tom Lennon's sister. Tom Lennon from the State and Reno 911 and our college friend.
Which stepping back, sometimes I'm like, oh, right.
Yeah, I know. I know. You don't think of it like that.
Yeah.
So they're from Chicago. We're from Cleveland. We went to Cleveland and Chicago around Christmas. It was great. It was a little intense because everybody's getting really old and we're getting older and our parents, are getting old.
Yeah, I'm not, but I understand other
No,
people
you're
are.
good. I can tell. You've got that Vaseline lens look on your screen. And so it was really beautiful. It was really great. And it was I knew it was going to be a long time in the Midwest. And we were going to stay through New Year's because some of Megan's cousins from Sweden were coming in to visit. And there was a middle-aged dad jam band show in Los Angeles right in the middle of it. I knew, like I said before, middle-aged dad jam makes me feel so good. I knew I wanted to come home for it, really wanted to play with you guys. And so I came home for like 2 days and then was just going to go back to Chicago for New Year's. And I wound up in the hospital and instead of playing a show with you guys. And it was really scary. And in addition to just being a drag and sad to like be in the hospital for 36 hours or whatever in the middle of the holidays.
I'd say terrifying too,
It was terrifying, but I have to say that it's become like a dimension of my life because when we were 26 and Shudder to Think was like fully doing its thing, I got sort of stopped in my tracks when I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's disease, which is a kind of cancer, which I beat.
But it was not a short process.
It was not a short process. I would say it was like 9 months of treatment and, a hard left turn in my life.
And because we were so young, I think that your sickness was sort of the first experience that most of the people who loved you had been through of somebody that is our peer going through something like this.
Yeah.
And so it was a big moment in my life and for everyone, it was like a huge thing of like, okay, we're mortal. We're not impervious. We're not all Teflon.
Right.
And here we go.
Here we go.
Life is real.
I remember that moment. So I got cancer. I got better. Shudder to Think made 50,000 BC, which was our final sort of proper record of songs that wasn't a film soundtrack. And then Jeff Buckley died, who was a friend of ours.
Yeah.
And then Tim from the band Brainiac died. And this all happened like in really fast succession. So it was a whole mortality trip at the end of my 20s anyway. Cut to like 4 years ago, it was 2018. It was right after Thanksgiving. And I had a massive heart attack out of the blue. I'm very, very healthy. I eat well. I exercise.
You meditate.
I meditate. And I wound up having to get 5 stents in my heart. And it was just a stunning event. I would say, like, again, kind of for probably all of us, right?
100%. And so, and just to underline what you're saying, so from like 27 to 52, pretty straight up doing great health-wise, right?
Yeah, 27. I think I was like probably like 48 or something when it happened.
Okay, yeah.
But so that happened. I'm pretty sure. I feel certain. We don't know for sure that it was connected to maybe some long-term tissue damage from radiation.
Yeah.
That I received when I had cancer, because it was in my chest and neck, which is ironic, given that I'm a singer. I'm a pretty emotional guy and pretty open-hearted character.
Yeah.
So it was like my heart and my neck were exactly where the tumors were and where I wound up getting radiated. So I don't know what that's about. Cut to age 48. So combined with some like genetic stuff, cholesterol, blah, 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 on mom's side of the family. And so that happened. And it was deep. And it was another hard left. But then I've been like really, really good, generally speaking, the past few years. Every time I have an ache or a pain, which, you know, doesn't get less the older one gets, I think, oh my God, is it a heart attack? Oh my God, am I going to die? Oh my God, what's going on? And then it's always fine, which I finally started believing my doctor, my cardiologist, like last year when he was like, see, here are your tests. You're great. You're doing great. So I came home last week for middle-aged dad jam, passed out in the bathroom, wound up in the hospital.
Oh God. Just to ask, so you passed out and like you, what?
I was in the bathtub and I like to take baths and every day. And I was in a very hot bath. There are some heart meds that I'm on that lower my blood pressure. And so sometimes if I get up too quickly, I have to be careful getting up too quickly.
Gotcha.
Not just in a bathtub, but like getting out of bed or just like getting up from a chair. Because like I can get dizzy.
That happens
dizzier
as you get older too. Everybody a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Whatever. I got like a muscle cramp in the bathtub, and I sort of like shot up to grab. You want to like massage a muscle cramp. Yeah. So I kind of shot up to deal with it, and the whole room started swimming. I didn't quite black out, but like I got myself out of the bathtub and then I kind of passed out just for like a couple seconds. But I had this like squeezing sensation in my chest, which happens when you see stars and aren't quite getting enough oxygen. But it was enough like the sensation of having a heart attack that given my history, I was like, fuck, and started texting all of my doctor friends and family, of which there are a few, and I'm so grateful and fortunate. And they were like, go to the ER. So I went to the ER, and of course, because my doctors are wonderful and thorough, they wanted to do like every test.
Right.
So I was just there for a little while thinking about everything that we're talking about, which is mortality, aging, friendship, family, life, and what's going to happen next. Everything was fine. In fact, everything was great. Like my heart's great. My stents are great. Everything's doing exactly what it should. So that's the happy ending, but it was dehydration, which was causing some kidney injury stuff, and plus these meds.
Would you say that every one of these experiences and everything that sort of adds to your health profile on the micro adds to these are bricks in the puzzle on the macro of who you are, and the art you make and just everything, right?
100%.
It's all part of the
100%. And I wouldn't, it's certainly not like a net negative. It's just what the jigsaw looks like. And, the colors are more vivid and the feelings are more, alive, profound. I'm not quite sure. But also there is this feeling, along with that comes the feeling that, oh yeah, this could go away in a blink.
Yeah. It's the reminder of how ephemeral it can all be.
It's just like beautiful and scary.
Here's the thing though. You say you take a bath every day.
Yeah.
My thing is I would love to get into a bath every day, but it's so hard to get out, I find.
Do you mean because it's so comfy?
It's comfy and I feel like I would take baths every day if I didn't have to get out of the bath.
I can train you. I can give you a whole tutorial.
Well, give a preview of it to our listening audience.
All right. Make the bath hot. Make it real hot.
Yeah.
And make it deep. And put some bubbles in there. It's where I used to get my reading done. But once I started wearing glasses, they fog up. So now it's where I get my TV watching done. So I get to watch like one episode of whatever I'm watching. if you make it hot enough, like literally right at that point where you're like, this is too hot. Is this too hot? This is too hot. It's not going to get cold.
Mm-hmm.
And you need a good tub. If it's not deep enough, then it gets cold. And
why are you dissing my tub when you haven't even seen it?
I just have a hunch. So, I mean, that's it. It's boring. It's just a bath. But then when it's time, when your show's over, or once you've spent 20, 30 minutes in there,
Just
got
got to
your
push
reading
up,
done,
get
got your
out.
thinking done.
Yeah.
Then you just got to get out and you get a real thick, fuzzy robe
I
around
got to
you.
get a good towel and a good robe.
You gotta
Yeah.
get- if you're fortunate enough to have or be able to afford a heated floor,
Mm-hmm.
that's the way to transition.
Tell me
out
if you
of the
think,
tub.
I'll tell you this. I have $75 million
Okay.
in my
You could
savings.
heat your floor. You could heat your floor with that. Just like invest that 75 million, right?
Yeah.
Turn it into 150 million, then heat your floor.
Okay, got it. This is help. I just like to give the listeners practical advice along with the philosophical.
Yeah, totally. Medical, financial, hygienic.
Is there something out there that's either recent or upcoming that you want people to check out?
Yeah. I have a new record, a new album, a solo album, a Craig Wedren
Oh my God,
record.
it's so good. It's so fucking good.
It's coming out on the 26th and it's called The Dream Dreaming. And it's kind of a pop record, I feel like, for me. I mean, it definitely feels like me, but I think it's pretty accessible.
I would say it's definitely very accessible. And I would say it's a pop record in so much as in the continuum of what you do. But I just think it's a great, oh my God, it's a really beautiful, amazing, very listenable. I would say that, everyone should check it out. I think it's a pop record like Stella is a comedy. Like it's for you, I think you feel like you're making pop, but it's still very you know?
Yeah, totally.
Which is so great.
I feel like a lot of people who made records during COVID, they were sort of dark and depressing. But because COVID was a little bit dark and depressing, I just wanted it's like there's something fantastical about it. It's sort of a fantasy record. It's like dancing and like being with people and melodies, and it's very maximal in a way, which I like.
Yeah, it's great.
I'm excited about it, and I'm making videos for every song on the record, and I've been directing them and editing them and learning how to do all that.
And what about any live work around it? Any shows?
I don't know, just because I really would want to do it right, which takes, logistically and financially a lot of doing. So
Worth it.
I sort of, there would need to be some kind of demand for that.
It's worth it. I'm demanding it.
Okay. I would love to do it. I would love to. So I got that, and then we're putting out these Shudder to Think demos. This in 2024, I want to freshly mix Shudder to Think's Discord stuff. Kind of like, did you listen to the Replacements, Tim?
Yes,
remix?
but I know you've been talking about doing this for a long time, and I'm dying for that to happen.
I know. It's just again, it's just a money thing, but I totally want to do that.
And we all have to figure out how to allocate our time and attention, don't we?
You could allocate some of your $75 million and just
By the way,
hold
just
off on the
for the
bathroom
record,
floor.
I was kidding about that.
I know. So that, and then Flash Car, and then I'm continuing to do a lot of Sabbath sessions, which are meditation music that I do. It's like live choral, vocal looping, ambient music that I just love.
So the curious lover of music can find all sorts of things that you're doing in different ways right now, which is great.
That's correct. And eventually Yellow Jackets is going to start up again. And so I'm pretty excited to delve back into that.
And your theme song and soundtrack for that show has gotten an enormous amount of well-deserved praise.
It's true. That's been really, really, really nice. Tell me about you. What do you got coming up?
Well, I've got very little coming up that's outwardly facing that you can check out. I mean, this year I've been a lot of touring with that band, that middle-aged band, and with the state.
Yep.
And then a lot of my
both shows. I mean, those shows of both groups are awesome.
Lots of fun, but truly not my actual day job, so to speak. And in the day job, I have been continuing to pursue my work as a filmmaker, writer, director of movies and television shows. And they are the ones that I'm working on now are not out yet or announced yet or haven't been shot yet, but hopefully they will soon.
Well, I want you and Stuart and I to make, I can't get this Ghoulardi concept out of my brain.
Don't tell
make a
anyone
Ghoulardi
yet.
movie. What's that?
Don't tell them yet. They'll steal it.
I'm writing a horror movie too with my friend Adam. Which is
I have a
really
lot. I have a lot of Cleveland related ideas that are in different forms.
fun. You and Stuart and I should start with like the home base one. I'm not going to give it away, but
There's no should.
based on something. I don't know. It just feels like start with home.
I remember when Michael Showalter and I wanted to make the ultimate high school movie, and we worked at it for a long time. We wrote a script, and then we're like, it has to start with that. That has to be the first thing. And then we're like, oh, screw it. Let's just do a camp one instead. Just start. So you never know what's right or what's wrong.
Did you guys write a high school movie?
We did.
What's it
It
called?
was about. It was called. Oh my God, what was it?
Where's
called?
that script?
It's there. It's around. It was
Is
called.
it good?
I don't know if we ever truly completed the work on it, but it was about it was in part about a teacher who was in love with a student. But it was also just like trying to our take on what high school is like, you know. And Michael and I went to Cleveland to Shaker Heights High School and interviewed kids when we were, 24 or whatever.
This rings a bell.
Yeah.
That's the bit that I remember.
The part that is so upsetting to me is I can't remember the title of it. And this is the first time I've ever mentioned it that I can't remember what it was called. But that's why it's good to have these podcast get-togethers sometimes, because you sort of go over certain things and Xerox them back into your brain.
Kicks up silt.
Yeah. Well, this is a joy.
It's
You're
so
a
fun to
joy.
talk to you. I can't wait to come visit your new spot.
You are invited I need a 2-week sort of heads up.
Got it.
And there's just
There's a sign-up sheet.
certain days and hours are not
Sign-up
good.
Genius. Sign-up Genius online.
Yeah, it's just easier. Craig, I love you.
I love you.
And this has been a blast. And it's called Talkhouse.
Talkhouse.
It's the conversation feature podcast. Let's stop recording. I'm going to tell you one thing just unrelated to this.
Okay.
Okay, ready? I'm stopping.
Thanks for listening to the Talkhouse Podcast, and thanks to David Wain and Craig Wedren for chatting. If you liked what you heard, please follow Talkhouse on your favorite podcasting platform and check out all the goodness at talkhouse.com. This episode was produced by Myron Kaplan, and the Talkhouse theme is composed and performed by The Range. See you next time.